Welcome to Protege, where we break down the invisible skills that actually accelerate your career. I'm Molly Jaggers, and I want to tell you something that might sound wrong at first. You know that voice? The one that shows up every time the stakes get higher? The one that says, I'm not ready for this. Someone's going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. I got lucky. I don't actually deserve to be here. That voice might actually be the smartest thing about you. I know, but stay with me here. Last week, we talked about the hidden tax on your time, the 200 hours a year women spend on work that will never get them promoted. Today, I want to talk about what that tax does to your head. Because when you're doing invisible labor and watching other people get promoted for visible work, the natural response isn't the system is broken. The natural response is maybe I'm not good enough. And then you go looking for help. You Google imposter syndrome. You listen to a podcast about it. You read an article that says, just remind yourself of your accomplishments, or journal your wins, or fake it till you make it. And it doesn't work because all of that advice starts from the same assumption that something is wrong with you, that your doubt is the problem and you need to fix it. What if that assumption is backwards? A researcher at MIT named Basima Tewfik spent years studying what actually happens when people experience imposter thoughts at work. Not what people assume happens, but what the data actually shows. And what she found breaks the entire narrative. Employees with frequent imposter thoughts received higher performance ratings from their supervisors, specifically when workloads got heavy and pressure was high. They exerted about 13% more effort under those conditions. And the part that really surprised even the researchers, their satisfaction went up, not down. The extra effort didn't drain them, it felt purposeful. And it gets even more interesting. Physicians who experienced more imposter thoughts, patients rated them as more empathetic, better listeners, and more effective at understanding their concerns. Colleagues across all industries, in fact, have rated people with those imposter thoughts as better collaborators. So these thoughts, in Tewfik's words, and I love this, they could actually be your superpower. In moments when you are underwhelmed, they could be the reason you get through it. Think about that. 3 out of 4 executive women have experienced imposter syndrome, and the standard advice is to overcome it. But the actual research says people experiencing it are performing better, collaborating better, and showing more empathy under pressure. We've been treating the signal as the problem, and that stops today. Because here's what we're going to do. We're not going to talk about how to overcome imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about how to use it. I've got 3 questions for you that are going to turn that voice in your head from an enemy into an instrument. But first, let's break down why you were told the wrong story in the first place. Because the problem with just being more confident isn't that it's bad advice, it's that it ignores a game that's rigged. There's 3 lies you've been told about imposter syndrome. And they're not just wrong, they're keeping you stuck. Lie number 1, it means you're not qualified. This is the one most people believe. You feel like a fraud, so you must be one. Or at least you must not be ready yet. Tewfik's research debunks this directly. She reviewed decades of imposter syndrome studies and found something most people don't realize. Imposter thoughts are dynamic. They're fluid. You don't have imposter syndrome like you have a condition. You experience it in some situations and not in others. So it shows up when you're in unfamiliar territory, a new role, a new team, a new level of responsibility, and it quiets down once you've been there long enough. That's not a disorder, that's growth. Think about it. When do imposter feelings hit the hardest? When you're doing something for the first time, the new role, a new company, a room you've never been in before. The discomfort isn't evidence you're a fraud. It's evidence you're doing something new, so of course it feels weird. And Tewfik actually went further. She identified 4 myths about imposter syndrome that most people still believe. It's not permanent. It's not more common in women than men. The experience itself is human, even if the consequences hit women harder. It's not uniformly harmful either. And it doesn't automatically create negative patterns. In fact, it can drive the exact behaviors that make you a better leader. So the next time that voice says, I don't belong here, try getting curious instead of spiraling. Interesting. What specifically is triggering this? That one shift from judgment to observation changes everything. Because the second you get curious about the doubt, you've stepped outside of it. You're not in the spiral anymore. You're watching it. And once you're watching it, you can decide what to do with it. Lie number 2, women just need more confidence. Now, this one makes me angry because it sounds like it should be helpful, like it's trying to be supportive, but it's based on a myth. A researcher named Laura Gian at ESMT Berlin studied this directly and found no consistent gender differences in self reported confidence. Let me say that again. When you ask women how confident they feel, the answers aren't systematically lower than a man's. The gap is a myth. But confidence is rewarded differently. That's real. Research out of Caltech showed that evaluators form overly pessimistic beliefs about women based on confidence displays. Confident men get labeled as leaders. Confident women get labeled as aggressive, difficult, or a lot. So women learn from experience, real experience, not theory, that confidence, supposedly a good leadership quality, is something that they can be disliked and penalized for. So when someone tells you to just be more confident, they may not mean it in an ill way, but ultimately they're kind of asking you to do the thing the system punishes you for. That's not advice, that's a trap. And this is why that reframe matters. If performing confidence gets you penalized and suppressing doubt gets you stuck, then the answer isn't to fake confidence or to fight the doubt. It's to change your relationship with the doubt entirely and make it useful instead of trying to make it disappear. And if you've been listening to this show, you've heard me talk about confidence as a skill, something you build through practice, not something you're born with. Today is the other half of that equation: what to do with the doubt that shows up while you're building it. And that takes me to lie number 3. It's all in your head. Now, this is the one that does the most damage because for a lot of women, it's not all in their head. Their environment is sending them real signals. There's a study that came out in 2025 that introduces something called the intruder paradox. And it draws a distinction that I think changes this entire conversation. Imposters think, I don't belong, despite evidence that they do. They have the credentials, the track record, the results. The doubt itself is internal. Intruders are told you don't belong, with ample evidence confirming the message. The doubt isn't internally generated, it's externally imposed through bias, exclusion, and systems that just weren't built for them. And the data backs this up. Right now, women hold just 29% of C suite roles. And out of the ones who made it there, 75% have experienced imposter syndrome. They cleared every hurdle, hit every milestone, and the doubt is still there. That's not a confidence problem. That's a system telling you something. And it compounds too. Women of color hold 9% of senior management and only 3% of the C suite. And for women navigating bias on top of gender, racial bias, cultural bias, the numbers are even more stark. 2 out of 3 report feeling on guard at work, not because of their performance, because of what the environment is telling them. The imposter feeling and the systemic reality are both pointing in the same direction. There's an HBR article by Ruchika Tulshayan and Jodi Ann Burry, and it's one of the 100 most read articles in HBR's history. And the title says it all. Stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. Because the label takes a rational response to a biased environment and turns it into a personal deficiency. So, if you're a woman feeling like an imposter, the research says the problem might not be your feelings. It might be the environment sending you a message. And recognizing the difference between I need to grow and this place is telling me I don't belong, that's not weakness, that's intelligence. And intelligence you can act on. Because once you can tell the difference and you can separate, I need to grow from this environment isn't built for me, you stop wasting energy fighting yourself and instead start directing it toward the moves that actually matter. Whether that's preparing harder because the doubt is telling you something real or protecting yourself strategically because the environment is. I'll tell you when this hit me. I've spent over a decade helping companies bring products to market, taking things from 0 to 1, building the systems and playbooks so teams could execute at scale. And I've been the person in the room who says, here's how we position this, here's who we're talking to, here's the plan. And it worked. And then I started building my own thing, my own podcast, my own brand, my own business. And suddenly all of that knowledge just flew out the window, completely evaporated. I'm sitting there staring at a blank page thinking, how do I position this? The exact question that I've answered for clients dozens of times. But when it was mine, when the stakes were personal, I couldn't access any of it. It was like my brain locked me out of my own expertise. So what did I do? I pushed harder, 14-hour days, 5 days without leaving my apartment, consuming every podcast, every course, every framework I could find, telling myself I just needed one more piece of information and then I'd be ready. I was doing all of this stuff and it felt productive. It felt like diligence, but none of it was getting me closer to actually putting something out there and finding out if it was good enough. I was fighting the doubt instead of listening to it. And the harder I fought, the louder it got. It created this tension. And eventually, I had to get honest with myself. All that preparation, all that consuming, I was avoiding the work that actually put myself out there. And here's what stung even more. I'd heard all this advice before. I'd read it, seen it everywhere. Just start. Done is better than perfect. But hearing it and actually internalizing it are two completely different things. There's no magic moment when you suddenly feel like you know everything you need to know. You don't check something off your to-do list and think, okay, now I've got this. That feeling comes from doing. You get the confidence by doing the thing, not by getting ready to do the thing. And I don't think I'm the only one who's been stuck in that cycle either. So if imposter syndrome isn't a deficiency and the system is rigged and the standard device is broken, what do you actually do with that doubt? This is where it gets tactical. I call this doubt as data. 3 questions you ask yourself every time imposter feelings show up, not to make them go away, to make them useful. Question 1. Is this doubt about my competence or about my environment? This is the intruder paradox in practice. Sometimes your doubt is telling you, I need to prepare more, learn more, ask more questions. That's productive doubt. Tewfik's research says leaning into that impulse, preparing more, showing up more thoroughly actually makes you perform better. So that effort pays off. But sometimes your doubt is telling you something different. It's telling you, this environment is sending me exclusion signals. I'm being talked over in meetings. I'm not being invited to the conversations that matter. People look surprised when I contribute something smart. Maybe you're the only woman in a meeting out of 10, or you keep getting asked to prove decisions your male peers make without question. Or you got the role, but nobody's treating you like you got the role. That's not a preparation problem. That's a strategic problem. And the response is completely different. The first kind of doubt you lean into. The second kind, you respond strategically. Find allies, document the patterns, make a plan. Before the reframe, both feel exactly the same. That sinking feeling of, oh, I don't belong here. After the reframe, one is a signal to prepare. The other is a signal to protect yourself. And knowing the difference changes what you do next. So once you've figured out which kind of doubt you're dealing with, that actually brings us to question 2. What is this doubt telling me to prepare for? This is where Tewfik's mechanism kicks in. Imposter thoughts don't just make you feel bad, they make you prepare harder. And the data says that extra preparation does actually work. the 13% more effort, the higher supervisor ratings, the better collaboration. So before a big meeting, presentation, difficult conversation, instead of trying to calm the nerves, try channeling them. Ask yourself, what specifically am I doubting right now? My data? Okay, let me double check the numbers. My delivery? Let me practice that opening one more time. My authority in the room? Let me think about who's in there and what exactly they'd need from me. So the doubt turns into a final check prep plan and just told you exactly where to focus. And the anxiety itself stops being noise and starts being a signal. But here's where I need to be honest with you. There is a line, and smart, capable women cross it all the time. Preparation is the superpower. We just covered that. But there's a version of preparation that isn't actually preparation anymore, it's hiding. This looks like the third revision of the deck, but the first one was good enough. It's the extra certification before you apply for the role. It's, I just need to do a little more research when you've already done enough. Smart people are really good at this because all of that preparation looks like progress. It sounds like progress when you describe it to your friends, your partner, your therapist, but it's not moving you closer to the thing you're actually afraid of, putting yourself out there and seeing what happens. You can build an entire world of tasks that you need to do to get ready. And none of it ever gets you to the moment where you raise your hand, make the ask, or send the email. So when you ask, what is this doubt telling me to prepare for? Also ask, have I already prepared enough and now I'm just hiding? If you've done your third pass and you still don't feel ready, that's not a preparation problem. That's your doubt telling you it's time to go. Send the deck, raise your hand, make the ask. That feeling of readiness comes after you do it, not before. Which brings me to question 3. And this might be the most important one. Question 3 is, am I doubting my ability to learn or my current knowledge? Adam Grant has this reframe that I think about constantly. He describes the difference between two internal narratives. The imposter narrative is, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's only a matter of time until everyone finds out. But the learner is, I don't know what I'm doing yet. It's only a matter of time until I figure it out. One word, yet. Same doubt, but a completely different relationship with it. Grant calls this confident humility, being secure enough in your expertise and your strengths to admit your ignorance and your weaknesses. Confidence without humility breeds blind arrogance. Humility without confidence creates debilitating doubt. So the sweet spot is both. And that sweet spot is where the best leaders actually live. And here's what's freeing about this: the information you need to feel confident about the stretch assignment, the new role, the big conversation, that information doesn't exist yet. You can't research your way to certainty. You can't prepare your way into a feeling of readiness. The woman who won't raise her hand because she's not ready is looking for something that only shows up after she's done the thing. So the question shifts. It's not, do I know enough? It's, am I capable of learning what I need to know? And the answer to that, if you're someone who cares enough to prepare, who feels the doubt because you take this seriously, is almost always yes. The shift for me came in two parts. The first was learning the difference between a productive push and a forced push. There was a day where I was trying to power through a script for this podcast, actually, and I was hitting every wall possible. Low energy, brain fog, nothing was landing. And for the first time, I actually paused and asked myself, is pushing right now going to produce something good? Or am I just punishing myself for not being further along? And that question made me choose differently. I stopped. I took a break, not because I was giving up, but because I realized that forcing wasn't courage. It was just another way of fighting the doubt instead of listening to it. And the second part was a conversation I had with someone in a community that I'm a member of who was struggling with imposter syndrome. And as I was talking them through it, I realized I was really talking to myself. What I said to them was, it's not imposter syndrome, it's a novice opportunity. It's normal to feel out of place when you're doing things you've never done before. when you're becoming someone you haven't yet been. You're not supposed to feel like you belong yet. You're building a new baseline. So you have to give yourself some grace while doing that. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, that's what I needed to hear too. Not you've got this or believe in yourself, just the permission to be new at something without treating the newness like a personal failure. You don't have to feel confident every day. You just have to commit every day. The identity you're growing into will eventually feel comfortable, but not until you've spent enough time in it. And if you're listening as someone who sponsors or develops talent, here's what this means for you. Think about the person on your team who seems less confident by normal standards, who overprepares, who asks more questions than anyone else, who maybe even seems hesitant to speak first in meetings. The research says that might be your best leader in the making. Those employees get higher performance ratings under pressure, higher empathy scores from people around them, better collaboration ratings from colleagues. So the person raising their hand a little bit less might be the one preparing the most. Don't mistake humility for weakness, and don't confuse quiet confidence with the lack of it. And if you're not in a sponsorship role yet, here's what this means for you right now. Your doubt isn't disqualifying you, it's equipping you. The question is whether you use it or let it use you. So, doubt isn't the enemy, but it does have a cost if you let it run unchecked. And I want to make sure we talk about that before we wrap up. Before I give you this action step, I want to name the cost because it isn't abstract. When imposter feelings go unexamined, when doubt runs the show instead of informing it, the consequences are real. Women with unchecked imposter syndrome delay asking for promotions by 1 or 2 years. They under-earn male counterparts at the same level by anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000 a year. Less than a third of women plan to ask for a promotion in the next 12 months. And that pattern doesn't stop at promotions. It shows up in the relationships that matter most for your career. Almost 9 in 10 women understand at some level what sponsorship is, but fewer than half have ever had a sponsor. The gap isn't knowledge, it's asking. The doubt itself isn't the problem, what you do with it is. Unexamined doubt becomes self advocacy paralysis. You know what you need, but you can't bring yourself to ask for it. Examined doubt, however, becomes your edge. You know what you need, and you've done the work to make the case. So here's what I want you to try this week. Let me be clear too. I still feel it. I want you to know that. That doubt still shows up a lot when I'm working on something I've never done before, when the stakes are high, when I'm in a room where I'm the least experienced person. It's there. But here's what's different now. I have a file on my computer. I literally wrote it during a low moment, and I call it strength reminders. And in it, there are 3 questions I ask myself every time that not ready feeling hits. 1, is this actually a knowledge gap or is it low energy doubt? Because sometimes the doubt isn't telling me I'm underprepared, it's telling me that I'm tired. And those require very different responses. 2, am I comparing myself to experts when my audience needs a relatable guide? Because I spent years thinking I had to be the most credentialed person in the room before I could contribute. I don't. I just have to be honest about what I know and what I'm still learning. 3, have I actually lived this? And the answer is almost always yes. Keeping track of these reminders has changed everything for me. Not because it silences the doubt, it doesn't. But it does give me a way to talk back to it with something other than blind panic. The doubt shows up, and instead of spiraling, I get curious. And that curiosity, that's the shift that matters. Once you start treating doubt as data instead of as a verdict, you don't go back to the old way. So build your own version of this. Maybe it's the 3 questions we covered today. Maybe it's your own. Write them down, put them where you'll see them. Because the goal isn't to silence the doubt, the goal is to get curious about it instead of defeated by it. And look, I want to be real with you. You don't need to make that doubt disappear. You don't need to feel confident every day. You don't need to overcome something that's actually making you better at work that matters, the collaboration, the empathy, the thorough preparation that earns trust. You just need to change your relationship with it from an enemy to an instrument. And you don't need to feel ready before you act. That's backwards. You act and then the readiness catches up. The identity you're growing into will eventually feel comfortable, but not until you've spent enough time in it. Your job isn't to feel like you belong right now. It's to notice the discomfort, stay curious about it, and keep showing up anyway. The identity will catch up. It always does. So that voice in your head, the one that says, I'm not ready, it's not evidence you're failing. It's evidence you're growing. It's the sound of someone who cares enough to prepare more, listen harder, and show up openly with humility and curiosity instead of arrogance and fear. The research doesn't say imposter thoughts make you weaker. It says they make you more resilient under pressure, more empathetic, a better collaborator, a better leader. So stop trying to silence the doubt and start listening to it. And if this episode shifted how you think about your own doubt, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Share it with that friend who just started a new role and feels out of place. They need to know that doubt isn't the problem. What they do with it is. Next week, we're flipping the lens a bit. You've reframed your doubt. Now let's look at why the people with power still aren't backing you. And it's not what you think. Thanks for listening. See you next week.